folks. Welcome to our session number 9 of Alchemy in the Lab. For those who are new and jumping in for the first time, thanks for jumping in. And for those who are returning, thanks for coming back. That means you like the topics and you like the content. Interesting tidbit. This is going to be our last one of the year, just because we got to focus on year end and give some of the tech guys a little break in December. So we'll be back doing this again starting in January. So welcome to our last session of the year. And then for those who don't know me, my name's Pete Downing, and I'm the host of today's Alchemy in the Lab. We're going to be focused on CyberArk in Modern IGA. And I got a good panel of guests with me today. And he's no stranger to In the Labs. I think you've done 3 so far this year. Pascal, can you give yourself a little intro and tell us what you do for Alchemy?
Yeah, sure. Well, always good to jump on and talk tech. My name is Pascal Pierre-Louis, and I'm a principal architect and lead over our identity practice. So what that means is helping around all things identity security, helping customers map identity product capabilities to their use case and business requirements. So yeah, looking forward to our talk today.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for jumping in. I know you're a busy man. And then also from CyberArk, we have Mr. Brian Smits. Brian, give yourself a quick intro and tell us what you do for CyberArk. I almost said Zilla, but CyberArk, and how long you been with them.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Pete. So Brian Smits here. I'm a solutions strategy architect at CyberArk, focusing mostly on the identity and IGA solutions. So Pete mentioned Zilla. So I came over from the Zilla acquisition. So we were I'm going to call startup modern IGA platform that CyberArk acquired to enhance their identity play. So looking forward to talking with you about that.
Awesome. And thank you for jumping in today. I know you're busy as well, and you're going to be giving us a fun demo today. I can't wait. And then behind the scenes, we got Mr. Peter Halliburton. Peter, give yourself a quick intro and shout out just because you help us out a lot, and I want to make sure people know who you are.
Appreciate it, Pete. Peter Halliburton. I'm based out of North Texas and manage the partnership with Alchemy here at CyberArk. So thanks for having us on today.
Let's jump in. So Pascal is going to take us through why modern IGA matters. And you were talking about this yesterday, like what is modern IGA? So hopefully you'll dive a little bit into that, but also what you're seeing from a customer point of view. You touch a lot of identity throughout your days, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Pete. I think, like you mentioned, wanted to kick things off by giving a quick overview on why we believe it's important to consider adopting modern IGA tool as part of your overall identity security strategy. And like you said, hopefully just through that discussion, we'll highlight some of the benefits and even define what it is and how it can be leveraged. All right, now let's start by highlighting a few challenges, right? Organizations like the ones that many of you currently are working for, you're feeling the heat when it comes to having to secure identities across a constantly growing ecosystem of applications and services that you're all tasked with supporting. Now, legacy IGA tools out there were built for more slower on-prem world, and they just can't really keep up with the move to the cloud, which includes having to deal with and manage the flood of SaaS applications, or even the rise of these identity-based attacks that we're seeing, given that now everything is SaaS-based. Now, one of the benefits of a modern IGA tool is that it provides intelligence, automation, and visibility you can actually use to manage access smoothly and work more efficiently. And really, the goal here is to reduce your overall risk. Now, speaking more about the overall benefits of modern IGA platform gives you real-time ongoing visibility into who has access to what across cloud applications, your various SaaS tools, and even your on-premises systems. And ideally, this provides analytics that call out things like unusual or risky access, and it highlights things like toxic permission combinations, right? And really, this gives your security teams much more control over the identity attack surface, which is really the key of what we're trying to do here with a modern IGA tool. And this is all really taking a big step towards zero trust and really helps to provide a more proactive approach to catching these identity-based threats before they become a problem within your organization. Now let's chat about access reviews for a bit here, right? So as many of you have likely experienced, right, traditional access reviews are slow, manual, and usually end up just being a rubber stamping exercise, right? Because of how slow it is, because of how long it takes, oftentimes reviewers are just blindly accepting access or certifying access without really understanding what they're certifying access to. A modern IGA tool helps to take a lot of that pain away, right? With things like risk-based context-aware reviews, automatic cleanup of unnecessary access, AI-driven recommendations, and a much clearer and easier review experience. And the result is that you have better accuracy, you have faster audit readiness, and you have way less effort for everyone involved, which means that you just have more effective access certifications and reviews that are being conducted, and allows you to do them more often because it's more streamlined. Now let's talk about RBAC, or role-based access control. This is another element that it makes up the overall identity security strategy. All right, now one of the biggest challenges with RBAC is actually figuring out what the right role should be so that you can automate provisioning in a clean, more efficient way. And this is where more modern IGA tools really shine, because they come with the ability to support role mining built in. So basically, the tool would use AI, machine learning, to look across your identity data, right? Because at the end of the day, RBAC, or developing RBAC, is effectively a data problem. And this is what AI is purpose built to support, right? And really, with AI, you're looking across your identity data, you're looking for spot patterns, and you basically are using this to group similar access profiles together. And it takes a ton of the heavy lifting out of building an RBAC framework, and it helps you to build clean, scalable RBAC models much faster. Now, because modern IGA tools are built as SaaS native solutions, modern IGA eliminates all the heavy lifting when it comes to infrastructure management, right? No longer having to deal with complex architectures or infrastructure, no long upgrade cycles, no pricey maintenance, right? You get it up and running in weeks instead of months, or years, because that's sort of the pain point with legacy IGA tools. And ultimately, it speeds up the time to value and keeps your overall cost down. Now, let's talk about the user experience aspect, right? Things like self-service access requests, straightforward approval paths, and clean, easy-to-use interfaces really cut down on the friction and make people actually want to use the system. So when users and managers, when they can handle a lot of these things on their own, IT sort of has less work on their plate, all without really losing some of the governance controls that you're after, because now you're introducing a more streamlined and effective tool that these managers and reviewers and even users can use for whether it's self-service access requests or even various approval flows that you can facilitate with these types of tools, which is really what a modern IGA tool supports. Now, the bottom line here is that moving to a more modern IGA platform sets you up for establishing a more secure and efficient and compliant identity ecosystem, right? With automation, better insights, and even a single place to see everything, you ultimately are cutting down on the manual work, right? You're closing security gaps, and you're working to stay ahead as your overall business continues to evolve. And it's not really just an upgrade of what you're doing from what we traditionally see with legacy IGA. It's really, we consider it more of a natural next step to really protect your organization and the business and the data that you have facilitated, which is access via identity. And really what we're after here is simplifying operations and really working to support a long-term identity security strategy. That about covers it. So Brian, I think I'll hand it off to you so you can sort of cover the actual tool itself.
Before I jump into the demo, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the IGA platform that was previously Zilla, and you still see the Zilla logo on here. But basically, Zilla was founded by Deepak Taneja, which, if any of you are just kind of IGA veterans, he started Avetska way back in the day, which has been since acquired by RSA. And since then, he kind of, as the time went on, realized that, hey, IGA is broken, and kind of what Pascal was talking to, a lot of this stuff moving to the cloud, there needs to be a new, better way of doing governance. And yes, it's still IGA, but instead of the A being administration, it's now automation. It's how can we now automate a lot of this stuff? Because again, we want to leverage the tools that are at our fingertips now. We have more powerful computers, AI, machine learning. So as I go through and talk through the demo today, we're really going to focus on, okay, the modern approaches that we are taking, because kind of want to say, like, a lot of tools these days are modern. So it's how are we differentiating ourselves, and what approach are we taking to be modern and automating that we can really give you a lot of value and benefit from the solution, so you're not stuck having to do a lot of manual processes like you would used to leveraging those old legacy systems. So like Pascal mentioned, this is a full SaaS cloud native solution, so nothing for you to host and manage, just log in and you're off and running. And the one thing that we wanted to make very easy and at the forefront was getting connected to your applications. We want to make that very simple and easy, because the more applications we can get connected and the quicker we can do that, the more data we can bring in, process, and give visibility into what's going on in your organization. A lot of times, these other systems, it takes months, if not years, to get connected to these systems, and you're left with maybe only 20 or 30% of your applications connected, where we want to get connected to everything so we can provide that visibility and the value to you. So we do have an ever-growing application library where we can, again, these are just applications that we continually add on, whether it's through existing customers needing new apps, we build them out. And the way in which we can provide that value to get the applications connected is through the different avenues in bringing that data in. So of course, if there's APIs, we're going to leverage the API connection. So, but again, not every application has APIs, or some of them are going to charge you for it. So what are the other ways in which we can bring that data in? So the other way is, okay, if there's a way to get a flat file exporter from those applications, we can bring those in. Then how do we automate that? So again, for your on-premise applications, we can do that through SFTP, so automation through that. And then we also have something called PO Box. And it's a lightweight containerized solution that will sit on your network and talk to those applications behind your firewall and essentially act as a proxy between your apps and the IGA solution. So again, we can now automate a lot of those connections, and that will just go ahead and run those SQL queries or run that query of your Active Directory and send this information back up to the IGA for us to process. And then lastly, there's going to be that large subset of SaaS apps that, again, you need to do access reviews on, you need to get visibility into. Think of, if you're in the finance industry or the insurance industry, all these financial portals or these insurance portals that you need to have access to and do these reviews on and get visibility into it. But there's no easy way to get the data out. You can't download anything. There's no APIs. You're stuck having to do a lot of copying and pasting. And it's a very manual process. And also the auditors don't like it too much because there's too much manual stuff going on, and there's some data that can be missed. So we've actually gone ahead and developed a robotic process tool, which allows us to go in and help automate a lot of that. So I have here a custom app that we've called Starlock Bank. So I just want to show you quickly how we can ingest this data from those applications like that. So if I hit sync now, basically brings me right into our custom banking app, if you want to call it that. And then I can leverage our Zeus application is what we call it. And this allows us to go ahead and build out a mapping of exactly where all this data sits on the page. So first off is the email addresses. Where are those? I'm going to go through this quick. The user's name, their permission, there is a status, and if there's any pagination here, skip that, and then we'll preview this. And then basically the tool is going to take over, and it's going to go through here and look at every single page, all the data on there, and grab that, process everything, and then it's going to essentially present that to us and say, hey, this is the data that we've grabbed. Make sure everything looks good, and then we're going to send it over to the IGA tool. So now if I hit send, we've sent all that over, and now we're syncing it. And now what I've just done, that's going to now be a one-time exercise. Basically, we can set that up, and we can automate that. We can go in nightly on a headless browser, let's say through a service account. Or if you can't do that, it might be a one-time exercise. Instead of having to do the mapping, your app admin can just go in, hit the sync now, and then they're off and running. So again, just wanted to round out how it's, regardless of the different applications that we have, we've kind of built all these different methods in which we can bring that data into the system. So once we bring each of these applications in and we have all these accounts, then we're going to see exactly, okay, who has access to what in each application. So we have each of these accounts here, and then we go and we map them back to a directory user. So we say, okay, is there some unique identifier like a email address, SAM account name, whatever, that we can tie back to a directory user to now build out this identity map of who everyone is in the org. So now if I look at a user here, I can look at Andre, for example, who's a senior staff in the sales department. Nick is the manager. Now I can see exactly everything that he has access to. I can show and hide some more information, any account groups, last login data. And now we do this for every single user in the entire organization. So by doing this, by bringing in as many applications and getting those connected, now we're building out this, not only this identity map, so we know exactly who has access to everything, but now there's all this information at our fingertips that we can see exactly what's going on. So if we go back and look at any of these applications, by mapping them back to your directory users, if now there's any users that are, let's say they get terminated, they leave the organization, they go on leave, they're not active anymore, the system's going to recognize us immediately because we're getting that data feed in from your directory source. And then again, comparing that back to all the applications that they have access to and what's going on. So now we can say, okay, are there any people in the org that have just been terminated or not active anymore that still have active accounts in these applications? So we're going to let you know about that. And we can go off and deal with that. And we can further expand on that by leveraging our security policy engine. And essentially, we can go out and build out all these different policies of, okay, what do we not want to have happen, or what do we want to look for in the org? So Pascal mentioned those toxic permission combinations. So the segregation of duties violations. So we can map out and say, okay, what are some toxic combinations in the system that we don't want to allow to happen? So in this case, you can't submit for a bonus payment request and also approve your own bonus. So this is one of those toxic combinations. So we can go through, we can build all these out, and then we can go ahead and turn this on and watch for it. So every single night when the application syncs, our policy engines run, we're going to look and see, okay, do any users in the organization have these toxic combinations of permissions? If so, we're going to report on it. But now we can even take action. So we can further take action. We can send an email to the application owners. We can send this information right off to your ticketing system, send a Slack message, send a Teams message, set up your IT distribution email list, your security email distribution list, whatever it is. So now we can be proactive in knowing what's going on with all of our applications and accounts. And again, this goes back to reinforcing the fact that we want to try to get visibility to as much as we can, because the more information we have for visibility, the more we can help you and be proactive, be monitoring all these things. We talked again before about terminated users with access. We even have, this was something that we built in for a customer request. So per some audit needs they had, basically they need to look at, okay, there's a handful of applications that they're not federated, they're not SSO protected, they're just username password. And they want to know, okay, are these terminated users, have any of them logged in past their termination date? If so, we can report an alert on it so they can have visibility to this immediately and not down the road on your quarterly access review. And then we can also go ahead and build out custom policies. So it gives you the ability to now go and say, okay, what is this logic that we want to set up and look for? So in this case, I just have, okay, if we have an active user and they're not in IT and they have access to this specific AWS tenant and it's privileged, I want to know about that. So basically saying, okay, anyone who's not in IT and has privileged AWS access, I want to know about. So again, by setting up all these different policies, we can be proactive in monitoring and taking care of all this stuff. And then we're going to have these findings reports. So not only are we going to notify those who need to be notified of that, but again, we can go through and we can report on each of these and see what's going on. And now we have this active report that we can monitor. We can see when things were detected, when action was taken, and really see how long a lot of this stuff is taking to be dealt with. And then we can even show, okay, when something has been closed out. And by monitoring all these applications on a daily basis between your access reviews, we want to make it so a lot of this stuff doesn't get through to the access reviews, because again, the more stuff that has to get reviewed during those certification campaigns, it's just more data that the reviewers need to look through. And the more that they have, the more likelihood of rubber stamping. And then some of the stuff can be accidentally approved, maintained, and they can still have that access. And that's what we don't want. And then because of that, you're going to have some audit findings and you're just going to run into some issues. So again, we want to try to put a lot of this stuff at your fingertips to automate and get in front of a lot of this information for you. And then, so again, just circling back, so we have all the applications, we're bringing in all the data, we know who exactly has access to what, etc. And by doing so, again, this is now where a lot of this modern stuff comes into play. And talking about Pascal's slide on RBAC. So this is kind of our answer to it, and we call it our AI profiles. And now, because we look at, again, every user who comes in to the organization and who they are, all the standard stuff, title, department, manager, but now we can expand that and say, okay, who else are they? Job code, location, language, special project they're on, whatever it is. Now we can leverage all of that. And now we can send this through our AI engine and look at these combinations of either individual attributes or combinations of attributes and say, okay, is this something significant that we can build a profile on? And we say yes. And then we say, okay, what is the common access that all these people have by having this combination of attributes? And we start at the top level and we say, okay, there's this all users profile. What does every single user in the organization need access to day one to do their job? They're going to need access to email, the HR system, Slack, whatever it may be. So everyone's going to get that access, just all standard access. Then we take it a layer down and we say, okay, what's another profile that we can do? We'll probably look at something a little bit broader like department. We can say, okay, everybody in engineering. So if we look at engineering now, we say, okay, everybody in engineering is just going to get your standard basic access to GitHub, Jenkins, and Jira. Then on top of that, we say, okay, what's another level down? So we have everyone in engineering, but now there's all these people who have different titles in engineering. You have your assistant engineer, you have someone who's in product management, your senior engineer, your technique leader. So we break those down even further. And if we look at a technique leader, now we have this profile that is, okay, you're in engineering and you're also a technique leader. Now, what do you specifically get by being a technique leader? So now you're going to get more admin rights, ownership rights, write and delete views in those same applications as the engineering team. So now we do that, we break all this down individually, and then we present this to the application owners. And we say, hey, this is what we think people should have. This is what we know they should have based on what's being used by them. And we present this to the app owner and we say, okay, we are this many people. So there's 17 people in the profile. So 17 technique leaders in the engineering department. And when we look at this data, we say, okay, the majority or all of them have this access. And we say, okay, this should be birthright or suggest access. So again, birthright, you get it day one, no questions asked. Suggested means, hey, we're not super confident why they have it. The majority of them do, not everybody, but maybe it's because they need to pass a certification exam or do something. Who knows? So let's maybe send it off to the manager for pre-approval. And the approver can go ahead and say, yes, I agree with this, or no, I disagree, or they can even reassign this to someone else to approve it. But essentially, when they go ahead and they activate this profile grant, it does two things. It's you're pre-approving it for provisioning. So you're saying, okay, anytime now someone who's either joining the company or changes roles or they get promoted and they're now a technique leader, they're going to get this access automatically. I don't have to go ahead and approve that ticket. But also, is what we're saying is, okay, anytime I see this during an access review, someone who's a technique leader that has these entitlements, let's go ahead and automatically maintain that. I don't need to go ahead and review this and do a maintain every single time, because this is what someone's access is needed for who they are in the org. And let's just go ahead and pre-approve it now. And then lastly, we can even go ahead and we can say, okay, maybe there's some things that the AI didn't pick up on, or we want to do some custom profiles. So we can go ahead and build a new profile, again, based on certain information in the system. And again, this is only certain properties that I have in my demo system, but again, based on if it's a physical location or if it's a special team you're working on or whatever, we can build out that profile and then select what applications and entitlements they get for that. And then again, set that for what their assignment level is going to be. So you can be proactive also for creating these profiles. So if you're onboarding a new application, let's say, and you want to, everybody in the engineering department has to have this day one, we can set that up. So as soon as we just give it out to everybody and then come access review time, it's already pre-approved. We don't even have to have the AI system learn it for us. And if we view this by like an application per se, if we look at GitHub, for example, so now we can see the GitHub owner would look at this and say, okay, everybody who's in engineering and manufacturing, they get the members permission. And then if you're a technique leader, you're also going to get owners and repository owners, and then what level you're going to get. And then over time, as the system learns, and again, your organization is continually changing. People are moving in and out. You're changing applications. You're even onboarding new features of applications, and we continue to stay relevant with you by just giving you the easy button to generate these profiles. And you can generate them again. You have the ability to choose what attributes you want to consider to generate those profiles and use that. And also settings around how many people should be in a profile and what that minimum match rate is to create a profile. So we give you complete flexibility of that. And then again, over time, as the system learns and grows, we can get smarter and ideally be able to automate a lot more of this for you. So let's see how this is actually then put into practice. So if we go off and we can build out some access reviews now. So we're going to focus on the two top types, the supervisor review and the app owner review. So again, the supervisor review is, again, managers reviewing who reports up to them. So if I'm a marketing manager, I have, let's say, 5 people that report to me. I'm going to see exactly what access they have to what applications. Versus if you're an application owner, you're going to be presented the application that you're responsible for or multiple applications and look at exactly, okay, every single account in here, whether it's a user account, a person account, a service account, a contractor, whatever, and then all the access that they have. And depending on the size of your organization and the application, these things can grow and get pretty large. So if we look at here and let's first focus on a supervisor review. So if we build out a supervisor review, first thing we want to do is, do we want to say, okay, do we want to focus on any subset of users in the organization? So here, I'm just looking at, okay, everybody in the org. If I wanted to focus on a specific department, we could do that. User status, we can say, okay, you know what? I want to look at all non-active users. So any deleted or inactive users, because again, a lot of those could slip through the cracks and have access to my apps. There's ways in which we can tag users. So if certain users need certain special custom tags associated with them, we can do that as well. And then lastly, we can also do transfer reviews, because again, your organization, people move between departments, etc. And if there's a transfer happening, we want to make sure the previous manager and the new manager can make sure that, hey, what access is supposed to stay with this person's new role. Maybe there's 30 days I need to keep this access or whatever. So again, we can help out with the transfers. We're just going to keep this global. We're going to use everybody in the org. Next, we're going to say, okay, what applications do we want to have in scope here? So I just chose a bunch of random ones from my demo account. But once we choose that, we can further scope down any specific permissions or groups that we want to use in certain applications. So we really give you that flexibility to narrow down and scope down exactly what's being reviewed and presented to the actual reviewers themselves. Or if you want to exclude anything like your standard default permission or your standard user permission, you can do that as well. But this is we're trying to move away from that by now leveraging the profiles. Because again, if everybody has access to, let's say, Azure as a default user, the profile is going to pick that up and say, let's just go ahead and pre-approve it. Everyone has that access. Let's just don't even bother with reviewing it.
So Brian, before you jump in,
yeah, sure.
Pass that really quick and I'll try to ask a question and get the audience warmed up. But
sure.
How many apps would you guys say you integrate with off the top of your head now?
So we have, between the catalog and just the custom integrations when I say custom, it's just something that we don't have in our catalog today, but we do have the ability to integrate with an API or something. So we have over 1,000 plus unique applications, again, for any method of those ingestion methods that we have our customers using today.
Cool. And then in regards to
your on-prem systems to your SaaS apps.
Yeah. So in regards to custom apps, Pascal, that's where you and your team could potentially help as well, in the dev app team as well, right? If they need to have a custom connection. You're on mute.
Yeah, I think any platform that requires custom integration, we do have an app dev team that can fully support any required customization as needed to connect said platform to target applications. Yep.
Cool. This is pretty awesome. I'll tell you my moment at the end.
Sounds good. All right, cool. So once we've done that, then we can set up our email notifications. So again, we need to notify people, let them know, hey, you have a review. So You can put in whatever custom message you want here. But then also we can set up and say, okay, do we want to have any automated notifications go out to make sure that the reviewers are not only logging in on time and doing a review, but they also have to complete it on time. So if a review hasn't been opened in whatever, by default, it's 5 days, you can choose it. We can send out a notification to them and say, hey, make sure you log in and get this started. Give them a custom message. Same thing with an incomplete review. 5 days prior to the campaign completion date, we can send a notification out and say, hey, you got to finish this. And then lastly, we can automatically escalate it to the supervisor 3 days prior to the campaign due date. So again, there's a lot of unforeseen circumstances that happen. People get sick, family issues, who knows it. So the system can automatically handle a lot of that for you. So you don't have to manually intervene. And of course, you can include the supervisor on all of these. And then lastly, we have all these different campaign settings. So this first one here, this one's saying, okay, do we want to leverage the profiles that we just generated before? So I'm going to keep this one off for now just to see what a standard campaign looks like. And then we can jump into one leveraging the profiles, and you can really see the power of the profiles and how much we can help with the reviews. And then we have all these different settings around what do we want to focus on in this campaign? Do we only want to look at your privileged permissions? Do we want to look at your unreviewed permissions? So we have a lot of customers who, instead of doing like your standard quarterly reviews, they go on a rolling review cycle where every, let's say, 60 or 90 days, yes, it's a quarter, but they just stagger these things out. And then they say, okay, I only want to look at the stuff that hasn't been reviewed in the past whatever time frame. Then going back again to those segregation of duties violations. So ideally, we want to, again, capture those and deal with them prior to the review, but it's not always going to happen. There could be some violations that come up a day or two before your review happens. So we had this here. So this was a request on behalf of a couple of customers, some of our larger ones that have hundreds and hundreds of applications and tens of thousands of users, and they have a lot of these toxic combinations of permissions. So this allows them to just build a review out of, let's say, the entire org, or let's just say focus on your finance, your engineering department, and I just want to see all my SOD violations. We can look at our orphaned accounts. So orphaned accounts, again, those are going to be the ones that we couldn't really tie back to a directory user. And that could be, again, an account that we need to manage appropriately and designate it. Oh, this is actually a service account. This is a contractor account. And again, make sure that we're bringing those to light. And then you can even take those different account types and say, okay, I only want to look at those. I only want to look at my service accounts, or I only want to look at my contractors. And let's keep a separate campaign for everybody else. And then again, if you have contractors in your orgs and then they have access to multiple different applications, they're going to be considered external users within the application within here. So let's just focus on those external people and really get those. Because again, by setting up these campaign settings, we're ultimately creating what the end result of that campaign, that audit report is going to be. And then this one here is powerful. Again, we're going to leave this off for now, but this is going to say, okay, going back to those terminated users with access, we can say, okay, system, I want you to automatically mark those to be revoked. So so we limit the chance of those, again, being rubber stamped and overlooked. Then we say, okay, who's going to do these reviews? Do you want to allow the reviewers to reassign the items? If so, can they give it to anybody in the organization, or it has to be in their reporting structure? Can somebody do a review of themselves and their entitlements? If not, who's going to do it for them? Then this is more so for your leadership team. A lot of times is designated reviewers and review delegates. So making sure, okay, who's going to do the review on, let's say, behalf of your executive, and then who's the designated reviewer for a specific person. And then one of the things I didn't really touch on, but again, you're going to have those specific entitlements, groups, accounts, and we want to assign owners to those, because those are the people who are going to, again, know really the ins and outs of what access this group gives these members to, or what this permission does, or who these accounts are. And so now we can assign those group owners and those permission owners, we can assign them to do the review, because they're the ones who are going to have the most knowledge around it, and really also take that task away from the reviewer, who might have to review, 5,000 accounts in the application. They're not going to know who some of these people are or some of these permissions. So again, allocate and give it to the people who know the most information. And then lastly, some campaign options. this campaign readiness one, this one's nice. It's going to let the app owner know, hey, your app's going to be using the review. Log in, make sure the app is synced, make sure all the data is clean and ready to go. Do you want to allow permission changes? Again, do you want to allow the bulk resolving of permissions? Can incomplete reviews be submitted? If so, what are we going to do with those reviews? Do we mark them to be revoked? A lot of times I hear a lot of people say, yes, if they don't finish it, we're going to mark them to be revoked. So they're going to have to deal with the consequences of everyone losing their access. And then lastly, comments. Are comments going to be required? If so, when? So again, a lot of different settings for the needs of your campaign or your organization. And then we set that up, we can generate this. And now we're going to show it to you in a preview state, basically saying, okay, this is what the campaign is going to look like. Review it over, make sure we kind of see what's going on. And here we can see there's going to be 191 reviewers, one of them being unassigned. These are going to be a lot of your users who don't have managers or those contractors or the service counts that, again, are not tied to real people in your org. But again, each of these are going to be the manager, what they're reviewing, and how many reviews they have. So if we look at this Aaron right here, who's the director of IT, you can see Aaron has 20 reviews to do. So these are all the people that report up to him and the access that all of them have for each of these applications. So now I want to quickly jump into this campaign here. So I essentially went through and I took that last one and I just cloned it. And then I made two changes. And that first one is, okay, let's leverage that profile data. So anything that's been pre-approved, let's go ahead and let the system handle that and just, we don't need to show it. And then also, if there's any terminated users with access, let's have the system also set those to be revoked. And now if we preview this one, we can see that we've dramatically reduced the number of reviews that have to be done. We can see here that we've already, flagged a bunch of these inactive users to be revoked by the system. So that doesn't even have to be reviewed. And then by leveraging that profile data, we've been able to pre-approve 75% of the entitlements in here, which means there's some managers now that don't even have to do a review. So their team was kind of in compliance and everything. So the manager's good, they're great. They don't even have to do a review this cycle. And now if we look at Aaron again, who lastly had 20 entitlements to be reviewed, now there's only 2. And these might be permissions that, okay, these are full access permissions that, hey, we don't want to pre-approve those. I need to review and make sure, because I don't want to just go off and pre-approve full access. I want to make sure there's a second set of eyes in that. And we send that to the manager or whoever. So the whole goal of leveraging the profile data as well as the security policies is over time, as the organization goes on and we grow and we get smarter and we keep track of all this stuff, by leveraging the security policies, we're going to take a lot of those exceptions out and deal with those ideally before the access review, and then learn exactly who should have access to what and pre-approve that. So now we're only giving the reviewers a few things to review. So instead of having to review hundreds or thousands of permissions, we just need a small subset. So now we're really giving a lot better user experience to each of the reviewers, especially the managers who have to do this on a quarterly basis. It's not really that fun. And it's just a better experience for them. And overall, comes time to, let's say, Q3 review, and you don't even have to do one, even better.
So Brian, here's my moment. I
Sure.
don't know if you ever done this before. You come in expecting X and you get Y, and that's kind of, I'm just the marketing guy, right? That's kind of technical. And I came in thinking, oh, this is, this, and my mind was set. But then you started showing, I'm like, whoa, this is pretty cool because, my terms, I'll say what this does is helps see not just the traditional authentication processes. So back when I was in IT over 20 years ago, everything was on-prem. Now everything's evolved to the cloud. So you don't have insight. Like I'll use us as like, hey, we have HubSpot, we have Pipedrive, we have this, we have that. And it's now you can see across everything what people are doing. But I think more importantly, in a regulated industry, it's when that person comes knocking on the door saying, hey, we need to know who has access to what. Is that typically what you see in the value prop here?
Yeah, it's that. And just, there's been a lot of POCs where we've been on. And it's, again, when we do these POCs, the thing we want to do is let's connect right to your system. Let's bring in your data and show it. And there's been so many times where we brought in things and there's uncovered SOD violations. There's uncovered, hey, this person was terminated 2 weeks ago. They still have active accounts in here, or that one policy in there, someone logged into a system after their termination date. So there's all these things that we end up finding during these access reviews, and the people are like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then I'm doing a POC now with a very large organization. One of their apps has 80,000 plus accounts. And he said, just figuring out, building out roles and who should have access to what, he said, it's a 2-person team right now. And he said, leveraging your profile is just clicking that. He said, it's going to be huge because I can now have them do a lot of other stuff they're responsible for and not spend half their time figuring out who needs access, and that access is always changing. So it's
That's
really taking the automation and again, to your point, that visibility now, because at the end of the day, yes, the end result for compliance is having to do that access review and have that audit report, but it's giving you the insights and visibility of what's going on. I don't want to say real time, but from a day-to-day basis is really where the value is. So you can kind of adjust and adapt and see why things are happening, but also monitoring when those exceptions are dealt with, when revocations happen. We're going to monitor those. We can send that stuff again off to your ticketing system and make sure things happen in time. And also, if there's going to be a certain set of apps or departments that are falling behind, if we look at this and say, okay, half these are engineering apps and these are all the tickets that are still open and everything else is closed, you guys got to get a better process in place. So there's a lot of other stuff that doesn't even come into play from like a standard IGA standpoint that we can uncover from just helping out with business processes.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then, how important is this? Let's say, unfortunately, I'm a company and I do have a breach. How important is this piece of the pie when it comes to the assessment from an insurance point of view?
Yeah, I mean, the insurance companies, they want to have everything. They want to know that there's a lot of the stuff is federated. So there's SSO in front of a lot of these things. There's also MFA in front of a lot of that stuff. But if you're only looking at group access from your IDP, from Okta, from Entra, from Active Directory, you're assuming what your identity access system says is true versus what happens in the actual application. Because there's a lot of times where there's a huge differentiator. And again, we uncover those. It's like they'll run these things and it's like, hey, this person shouldn't have this access. They're in this group. But again, if the elevated access gets done in the application, they don't have any visibility to it there. So that's why we want to, again, go to the source, to the application, and bring in everything, all the data, all the accounts, and really show you what's going on and uncover a lot of those things that you really don't know. And then in terms of a breach, it's how did this breach happen? It's probably because, again, there's some application or some account that has access that they shouldn't, and maybe there's no MFA, and we can see if there's MFA. Like, so going back to the last year with the Snowflake incident, we actually went ahead and built find it here quick. We built out a policy to check if MFA was enabled for all the users. So we built that in, we turned it on for every single customer. Yep. And immediately a ton of them had findings and said thank you. And again, this was something that they had MFA enabled on the SSO side, but not on the application side. And there was really no easy way for them to uncover that. And we just went on and built out this policy and they could see it.
Can you see things like, because users are probably do this a lot where they have the same password across different platforms and maybe MFA is not turned on, and you can see that too. Like,
so we don't do things. So again, depending on the application and what the integration is, certain things we don't really see stuff with the password, but for like the AWS API keys. So if I go back to like some of these, like AWS access keys aren't rotated, or your password policy. So again, depending on the application, what we have and with the integrations, we can do this. And again, it just helps to uncover and just give more visibility into what's going on and present that to the teams. And again, once we have that finding, it's reported there and we can continue to send it out. I mean, we can say, okay, let's notify the IT distribution team and send this out daily until it's dealt with.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts on my side, right? Obviously, I'm pretty well versed on all things that Zillow does. And, one of the things that we often, consult and strategize with our customers is that you can't secure what you can't see, right? And so the name of the game, especially with the explosion of all these apps and the explosion of cloud, is to reduce your identity attack surface. And you do that by increasing visibility across the ecosystem of apps. So the fact that Zillow supports thousands of applications and has flexibility to even ingest data that are from systems that are considered disconnected. Really establishes it as a platform to really give you the visibility that you're after, so that you can secure, right, what you're now able to see and have visibility over. Because from an overall identity strategy perspective, the name of the game is to limit that attack surface, especially now that we're moving away from the on-prem, which means less control, and now we're in this SaaS-based platform, or SaaS-based platforms, or collection of platforms. We really want to be able to centralize and get better visibility across our ecosystem. So yeah, and the other part, my favorite features of the Zilla is the AI profile. So this is speaking from someone who's been in the trenches, worked with customers to do that top-down analysis for RBAC, which is very time-consuming. We call it the pen and paper approach, right? You're interviewing stakeholders, you're interviewing app owners, and literally having conversations with them and trying to identify, well, what roles do your resources need? What entitlements should we be giving them? Now with tools like Zilla, we're now preaching this bottom-up approach, where let's pull all this data, right, into the platform, and let's use AI to help solve for this, because A, it's going to be more cost effective, and B, it's going to be more effective in general, because now we're just analyzing the data that AI is giving us. And then, of course, making changes accordingly, or modifying what we're being told that it's telling us in terms of what access profile it's suggesting. So, I think, again, between the visibility component that Zilla offers and the ability to support this role mining capability, which I think is a very important aspect of an identity security strategy, especially when you want to target automating joiner move reliever processes. Zilla, offers tooling to support those things. So yeah, I think that's just my 2 cents on there.
And then that's good. Like, I didn't really go over too much today, just given the time we had, but from the joiner move reliever processes, again, because we have these profiles, we know who should have what. When people get onboarded, when people move internally, based on all those attributes that make them up, we know exactly what they should have. We'll send those pre-approved tickets over. And and then also, if we have those integrations, either us or your IDP, all that stuff can be done automatically. So we're really trying to, again, automate a lot of that stuff. So only certain things need to get approved. And then also, depending on the application, whether it's manually provisioned or not, or done through the IDP or a direct connection. So it's just getting that visibility is the big thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So we covered a lot today. And so there's 2 kind of call to actions I would recommend you could potentially take. And the first one is we have these great, what we call mastermind strategy sessions. You get to sit with a smart guy like Pascal, and you run through kind of what you have today, where you could potentially head, and then what's good fits for your environment. So I highly recommend, setting up a session with the technical team, because they can take you through and kind of get an idea of how you're set up, and then give some good guidance for the future. And if you want to dig a little deeper into CyberArk, we also can dig in and get you more demos, more insights into the product line, tons of white papers. If you're interested, I got a good library of good, solid content, and I'll send you some of that as part of my follow-up. But again, if you want to dig deeper with CyberArk and team, just let us know and we can enable that. So definitely check those 2 out. I put both links in the chat as well. So feel free to bookmark those and or submit some information. I happen to get all that, so I can follow up with you relatively quickly. All right. And first off, I just want to say thank you, gentlemen, for jumping in today. I appreciate the time. I know you guys are busy. And as always, I like to let you guys say a kind of final words for the audience. So Pascal, any final thoughts that you want to leave the audience with for today?
I think I mentioned them sort of on my last spiel, but I think it's worth strongly considering what could a modern IGA tool look like in your environment to not only mature what you're currently doing today from an identity security strategy, but also to provide better visibility and better streamlined support across your various apps that you're tasked with managing. So yeah, I think, and as Pete mentioned, these are certainly topics we can discuss in an identity strategy mastermind workshop.
Awesome. And then Brian, hey, thank you for jumping in, and awesome demo. I learned a lot today. So any last words you want to leave the audience with?
No, I just want to just say thank you for having me, and just wanted to echo what Pascal is saying. And again, it's all about visibility, and just, we can help you. We've seen a lot of things. We've worked with a ton of companies and organizations of all sizes and ages and stuff. So our biggest goal is to help you get that visibility and automate a lot of stuff. So
Awesome. Well, thanks, gentlemen, for jumping in today. With that, I'll say thanks for jumping in today, folks. And as always, as I say, have a great day and see you all on the flip side.